The door to my luxurious beach house swung open, revealing two faces I hadn't seen in 12 years. Eleanor, my daughter, and Gregory, her husband, stood before me with forced smiles and eyes filled with a poorly disguised desperation. Their gazes swept quickly over the interior of my new home. The Italian leather furniture, the 70-inch television, the panoramic ocean view that stretched behind me like a living painting of freedom. "Mom," Eleanor murmured, her voice trembling, "we need to talk to you." For 12 long years, these two human beings had erased me from their lives, as if I had never existed. 12 years without a phone call, without a Christmas invitation, without ever meeting my own grandchildren. And now, after I had bought this multi-million-dollar house in cash, they appeared on my doorstep like ghosts from the past, returning only when they caught the scent of money. I watched them in silence, noting every detail of their worn-out appearance. Gregory tried to peek over my shoulder to see more of the interior of my seaside sanctuary. Eleanor wore a faded green dress that had seen better days, and her synthetic leather shoes showed cracks that spoke of financial hardship. Worry lines marked her forehead like furrows in dry earth, and her hands trembled slightly as she awaited my response. "Talk," I repeated, with a calmness that surprised even myself. "How interesting! After 12 years of absolute silence, now you want to talk?" The color drained from their faces, as if they had seen a ghost. Gregory cleared his throat uncomfortably, adjusting the wrinkled shirt he was wearing. It was obvious they had come straight from somewhere things hadn't gone as they'd hoped. Their eyes couldn't hide the desperation that had brought them to my door. During all those years of cruel abandonment, I had survived by selling my homemade pies and desserts at the town's farmer's market. Every Sunday, while they were probably enjoying lavish family gatherings at expensive restaurants, I was standing under the relentless sun, smiling at strangers who appreciated my baking more than my own blood. My hands had grown rough from the constant work. My back had stooped from carrying heavy baskets filled with sweet hopes. But my pride never completely broke. The aroma of freshly baked desserts still lived in my most cherished memories. Finely ground cinnamon, pure vanilla extract, toasted coconut browned to the perfect color. Flavors that once filled my home when Eleanor was little and called me the best cook in the whole wide world. Those golden days seemed to belong to another life, to another woman who naively believed that family love was unconditional and eternal. The transformation had begun gradually after Eleanor met Gregory at that company party where she worked as a secretary. At first, he was all charm and calculated courtesy. He would call me his dear mother-in-law with that smile that never reached his eyes, and praise my Christmas casseroles while secretly planning how to distance Eleanor from my influence. But little by little, I began to notice the subtle changes that seeped into our relationship like a slow poison. When Eleanor mentioned visiting me on weekends, he always had a work emergency that required his immediate attention. When I called in the afternoons to hear her voice, he would answer the phone with an annoyed tone and promise that Eleanor would call me back, which never happened. Messages were mysteriously lost, invitations misplaced, and plans canceled at the last minute for increasingly far-fetched reasons. The exclusions began as accidental oversights that hurt, but which I could forgive. Eleanor's graduation from her MBA program. "Oh, Mom, we thought you already had other more important plans." The baby shower for her first daughter, my granddaughter, whom I never met. It was something very intimate, just her closest friends from college. That same granddaughter's first communion. We completely forgot to tell you. Everything was so rushed. You know how these things are. Each excuse stabbed my heart like a dagger wrapped in gift paper with golden bows. I would smile, nod my head, and pretend to understand their reasons perfectly. "Don't worry, my love, next time will be different." But next time never came, and my phone remained as silent as a tomb in the cemetery where my husband rested. The nights grew longer, the Sundays emptier. I cooked for one, talked to the photographs on the walls, and celebrated my birthdays with a single, lonely candle stuck in a small cake I bought from Mr. Peterson's bakery. He always asked about Eleanor, and I always responded with the same lie. She's very busy with her new life. You know how it is. But now, standing on the threshold of my dream house, with the ocean whispering secrets behind me and the salty scent of the sea filling my lungs, I saw them for who they really were. I invited them in with an elegant wave of my hand, watching as their eyes widened at the sight of the luxury that now surrounded me. The Italian marble floor gleamed under the natural light pouring in through the enormous windows, reflecting their small, nervous figures. Eleanor walked behind Gregory like a shadow, keeping her head down while he appraised every piece of furniture, every work of art, every detail of my new reality with the poorly concealed greed of a professional appraiser. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the cream-colored leather sofa that had cost more money than they had seen together in years. "I suppose after so much time, you have a lot to tell me." Gregory cleared his throat, adopting that important man posture he always used when he wanted to impress someone. "Annabelle, we know it's been a few years since we've spoken, but 12 years!" I interrupted him with a firm voice. "Not a few years, 12 exact years since you decided I didn't exist." Eleanor finally looked up, and I could see tears welling in her eyes, but they no longer moved me as they once had. I had cried too many nights alone to allow her calculated tears to manipulate me now. "Mom, it wasn't our intention. Things got complicated. Gregory's job, the kids I never met," I replied, feeling the rage that had been contained for years began to boil inside me.
My grandchildren, who grew up without knowing they had a grandmother who would have loved them unconditionally. During those 12 years of forced exile, I had built a routine that kept me sane. Every morning, I got up at 5, preparing my desserts with the same dedication I once put into caring for Eleanor when she was a baby. The pie crust required patience. The exact point of the caramel needed constant attention, and the baking time did not forgive mistakes. Those recipes had become my salvation and my livelihood. Sundays at the farmer's market were my time for social interaction. Older women like me would come to buy my sweets, and we would end up talking about our lives, our absent children, our postponed dreams. Martha, a 72-year-old widow, became my confidant without either of us planning it. She too had been abandoned by her children after they married. She too knew the pain of being invisible to those who were once the center of your universe. Children think that once they form their own family, we parents no longer matter, Martha would tell me as she bought 3 pies to take to her neighbors. But when they need something, oh, then they remember we exist. How prophetic that conversation had been. Now, watching Eleanor wring her hands nervously while Gregory mentally calculated the value of my new life, I understood perfectly what Martha had meant. The change in Eleanor had been gradual but relentless. During the first few years of her marriage, she still called me occasionally, but the conversations became mechanical, filled with awkward silences. Gregory was always present in the background, clearing his throat or making comments that cut our talks like sharp blades. "Your mom always has some drama," I heard him say once when Eleanor thought she had hung up the phone. "My mother never bothers us with her personal problems." Her personal problems. That's how Gregory had classified my loneliness, my natural desire to maintain contact with my only daughter, my need to be part of her new family. Everything I felt and needed had been reduced to personal problems that disturbed their perfect married life. The family invitations began to arrive less frequently until they disappeared completely. First, it was Thanksgiving dinner. "This year will be something small, Mom, just the 4 of us." Then, Christmas. The kids are sick, we'd better postpone it. Then the birthdays. Everything got complicated with Gregory's work. Each excuse was accompanied by empty promises about a next time that never came. Eleanor developed a special talent for making every rejection sound reasonable, every exclusion seem temporary, every abandonment feel as if it were for my own good. We don't want you to feel obligated to come, Mum. You're old enough to rest and enjoy your peace and quiet. My peace and quiet? As if loneliness were a gift I had asked for? As if waking up every morning in a silent apartment was my idea of happiness? As if cooking for one and eating in front of the television was my definition of a full life? The years passed like pages of a calendar that no one read. My routine became so predictable that even the mailman knew exactly what time I would be watering the plants on my small balcony. Monday, prepare apple pies. Tuesday, Jell-O salads of different flavors. Wednesday, chocolate fudge cakes that sold like hotcakes. Thursday, muffins that perfumed my entire apartment. Friday, pumpkin spice turnovers. Saturday, prepare everything for market day. Sunday, the market, the ladies, the conversations that temporarily filled the void in my chest. But there were also moments of such profound loneliness that I thought I would drown in it. Entire nights awake, staring at the phone that never rang, waiting for a text that never arrived. Christmases celebrated with television specials and a small artificial tree that I decorated by myself. New Year's Eve welcomed with a glass of lukewarm sparkling wine and the renewed hope that maybe this would be the year of the reunion. The sharpest pain came at unexpected moments, when I saw whole families at the park, when I heard other grandmothers talk about their grandchildren, when I passed by toy stores and wondered what mine would like. Eleanor had had 3 children, whom I knew only from blurry photos on social media that I checked from fake accounts like a spy on my own family. Mom! Eleanor's voice brought me back to the present. We know we made mistakes. Mistakes? The word came out of my mouth like a bullet. Erasing your mother from your life for 12 years was a mistake. Denying your children the love of your grandmother was a mistake. Gregory shifted uncomfortably in his seat, finally understanding that this conversation was not going to unfold as he had planned. His eyes continued to scan my living room, calculating, evaluating, planning his next move like the expert manipulator he had always been. They weren't mistakes, I continued, feeling the truth pour from my throat like hot lava after years of being contained. They were conscious, calculated, cruel decisions. You chose to erase me from your lives as if I were an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful to you. Eleanor began to sob, but her tears no longer had the power to disarm me as they once had. I had cried alone for too many nights, wondering what I had done wrong, how I had failed as a mother, why my unconditional love had not been enough to keep my family together.